All right, let's talk Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons obviously have been in the news a lot over the past few days and weeks when it comes to the quarterback position. But lost in all that noise is a really solid strategy the Falcons have used in terms of addressing another key area of their team and dealing with the environment across the entire football world. We'll get into that in just a second with some really interesting numbers. But first, I'm Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, the Atlanta Falcons, they've had a pretty active offseason, of course. There's been a few Falcons like Jared, of course, who's moved on to allegedly greener pastures. We'll see how that works out for him. But the Falcons made a fair share of additions on their own, and we're going to highlight a few of them specifically here. We talked about these at the time, but let's just refresh everyone's memory here. Let's throw it up on the screen. So this is just talking defensive line moves, the major defensive line moves the Falcons have made. You can see all the guys according to X, all these different reporters, all these different insiders. Jonathan Jones saying they re-signed Taquan Graham. Aaron Wilson saying they re-signed Street. Of course, Ian Rappaport highlighting the fact they brought in Leonard Floyd, which was a phenomenal move. And then they brought in Morgan Fox, according to Peter Schrager, another really under the radar move. So we can see here the Atlanta Falcons finding good quality, cheap players and bringing back some good quality, cheap players to round out their defensive line. But here's where it gets interesting. Let's go and throw over to this other graph here that's very, very wild to look at. So what we're going to see here is teams that have cut players by position group across the entire NFL to save cash. You can see the two position groups where teams save the most cash across the entire football world was interior defensive linemen and edge defenders, right? You're seeing basically look at the entire team from the Falcons to the LA Rams and everyone in between. If you look at everyone who cut different players and what cash they saved, interior defensive lineman, edge rusher, far and away at 129 million for defensive linemen and edges at 124 million in terms of freeing up cash. What does that mean? It means it's basically a selling spree. People are trying to unload these players for whatever reason, just a market inefficiency, overreaction. It's kind of weird to think of edge players getting cut and released all over the place, but that's what's going on here. The market is essentially crashing for edge players and interior defensive linemen. Anyone that's dealt with a market crash in the real world, what's the best advice anyone ever tells you? The market is crashing. You look for cheap, fair price, stable assets, right? Edge defenders, defensive linemen, their values are crashing as a whole, but there are going to be some quality players that have their values weighed down because of the overall market. That's when you can pick up bargains, and that's exactly what the Falcons did. They didn't reach and try and get the huge name and overpay for an Odeyingbo, for example. What they do, they got Leonard Floyd at a great team-friendly deal, great discount. Morgan Fox, phenomenal situational player, great veteran, good leader, great deal. They bring back two depth pieces at very team-friendly deals. Talking about Street and Graham here. This is just really quality roster management by the Atlanta Falcons, understanding the marketplace. The market is crashing for defensive linemen. It's crashing for edge rushers. Do the Falcons freak out? Do the Falcons try and overpay because, oh my gosh, the market's tanking? We need these guys. We need edge help. We need defensive lineman help. No, you wait, you be patient, you pick your spots and find good, valuable players at discount prices and bring them in. Just like the greatest investor of all time, Warren Buffett, when the market is tanking, what does he do? He looks for good businesses, good companies that are now at discount prices, and he buys them. That's what the Falcons did here, and it's a really, really smart move. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on all of this, but Atlanta fans, you first in the comment section below. Of all of the moves the Falcons have made, all the signings, there's been a healthy amount when you factor in the re-signings and the new additions. What's one under the radar move that you think people should really be paying attention to? Put it in the comment section below. Again, that one move that you thought didn't get enough headlines but should be really, really good for Atlanta. I personally think the Morgan Fox acquisition falls under this bucket, but give us your answer. Maybe it's Fox, maybe it's someone else in the comment section below. But Mize, over to you now. What are your thoughts on the Atlanta Falcons and just their strategy here with how they handle the defensive lineman and just edge rush market?
Yeah, no, I think this is a classic, maneuver of what you say, buy low, sell high. When a position gets overvalued, you got to move on. You got to make the tough cuts. And I think in a way, it's kind of what the Falcons did on the offensive line side of things. They had a lot of guys come in. There's a lot of positions group. The interior offensive line seemed to be all the rage this year. Dahlman was a guy that unfortunately he's a great player, but he's getting a lot of big money somewhere else. So you sell high on that one. You got to move on when the price is too high. But when the price is low, like you said, where there's oversaturation for the market here, the Falcons, what do? They go in and say, okay, let's go pick up some of these guys. There's a lot of D line talent out there. And the top guys, like you mentioned, like the Ode Ingbos of the world, even the Falcons, Grady Jarrett of the world. That's a name people want to overpay for a guy like Grady Jarrett. Those top names, they're gonna get paid, but there's such an oversaturation of the market when you look at defensive linemen. We're gonna be able to swoop in and get some quality guys at quality prices, just like you alluded to. And I think that's the key here. That's what they're doing. And who better to know the defensive line position than Raheem Morris as well? This is a guy who done a really great job, in his previous runs, building defensive lines, getting that talent in, knowing who is good, knowing who is bad. So I think they made some quality additions here. I think this is really going to pay off. But just the fact the Falcons there seems to be a shift. It seems like offensively they've made some overpays lately. They've really done some things in the past that didn't pay off, but now they're turning that page and saying, "Hey, let's kind of refocus what we do as far as free agency goes. Let's not go out and grab the most expensive guy. Let's read the market. Let's see what happens as far as what players are available. Where is there an overabundance? Where does the supply exceed the demand? And let's go get some value additions." And I think we've seen some other really smart teams do this lately. We've seen the Cowboys do this a lot lately. We've seen just a lot of really smart teams say, "Hey, let's see what the market brings now, and let's not go out and just try to get the best player available. Let's read the market and see where we're getting the best deal." And when you make the best deal, you're going to have a very quality team for a long time, because you're not going to overpay these guys. You're not going to get put into salary cap turmoil. You're not going to have to make the hard decisions. When you make the smart financial decisions for the team that are also quality players, that is when your team's going to be in the best spot. And I think that's exactly what the Atlanta Falcons have done here.
Yeah, and there's a term when a market is crashing in terms of an asset class or just the market in general, like it is for edge rushers and defensive linemen right now. It's called flight to quality. And you kind of mentioned it, like the Ode Ingbos, the Grady Jarrett's, the big names. People rush in. The demand for those big names spike up dramatically because people still need defensive linemen. Teams still need edge rushers. But at this point, because the market is crashing, all the teams seem to fly to big names because it feels safe, and teams will then overpay for it, and that opens up opportunities for, again, good quality players at discount prices, that over the long term there'll be a correction, and those players that you got at 50 cents on the dollar, you'll recognize that value and you'll be really successful. You'll get a great deal. A good example of this, again, going really back into financial history here, if you go back to the post financial crisis around 2009, 2010, a lot of people in the retail space flock to Walmart. They go, Walmart's a safe. People will still buy Walmart. Walmart from 2010 to 2016 roughly went up about 40 to 50%. Good return, right? Over that 7, 8 year window. Nothing wrong with that at all. Dollar General, right? Big name. People know the company, quality business. Everyone knows the Dollar General, more than doubled during that time frame. And that's exactly what happened. And that's exactly what's happening here at defensive linemen. People freaked out in 2010. They rushed to the flight to quality. They rushed to Walmart because they knew it. It felt safe. People rushed to Ode Ingbo. People rushed to Grady Jarrett. And that left the value plays, the Leonard Floyds, the Morgan Foxes, available for discount prices. And so years go by, seasons go by, and that value is recognized. And you get a really good player, in this case, Leonard Floyd, for 10 million bucks, whereas people are playing for a guy like Ode Ingbo at 18 million APY, who's maybe as good as Leonard Floyd, maybe not even as good as Leonard Floyd. Again, value shopping here by the Atlanta Falcons, recognizing the market, having that mindset. It is so critically important because every once in a while, whether it's in the stock market, the real estate market, or in the National Football League, other teams will overreact. There'll be an opportunity for you to make high value play. And that's exactly what the Atlanta Falcons were able to pull off here.
Yeah, Nick, and I think when you look at the Falcons now and you assess this roster, I think they're still, despite all of this, despite everything going on this roster, despite the tough moves they had to make, they had to let some higher price guys go. The roster, once it goes through the storm, it's still in pretty good shape. I mean, this is a very, very solid team. When I look around, you've got Rook Aroro, or however you pronounce his name. It's always gets me every time. But every time. But he's a young, rising pass rusher. He's got some good film. I think he's very raw, but you got him down there. You have Ebikadi and you have Floyd now on the edges, Fox, and you got Anyamana in the middle. The trenches are still really good. They still, despite losing a really quality center, but for a team that massively overpaid for him, you still have one of the better looking offensive lines in this league. Bergeron has been making a climb. Lindstrom's probably still the best guard at his position. McGarry's looking good. Matthews is good. You have a new center in Newsel. We'll see if he's the guy that stays there to go after someone in the draft, or do they find another quality center? There's a lot of interior offensive linemen out there in the market, but I think overall this team still looks really good. It has some really solid players on this team. Has some good playmakers. So when you're thinking about, we did let go a lot of good players. We had to go look for, quality bargains, value type of guys. Is this roster suffering because of those moves? I think if you take a step back and overall just analyze the roster, look at what is going on for the Atlanta Falcons, they're in a really good spot. And it's other positions as well. Great value at linebacker with Devon Diablo. That's another great pickup they had. Not, the same kind of oversaturation as you see in the edge interior defensive line market, but still the same philosophy. Let's get the value, guys. Let's not go overpay for, Ernest Jones or, Jamie Sherwood, any of those guys. Let's go get a value guy who brings something to the team, and it's paid off. The Falcons are looking really nice, and I think they're coming in next year with, a much improved team. I think Pennick's going to be really good. I think this offense is going to look good, and I think this is going to be a team that is going to fight to win this division.